Lawmakers and economists worry a spike in new coronavirus cases is threatening to undermine the U.S.'s economic progress. This comes as social safety net programs begin to wind down in the fall, affecting millions of Americans. Economic experts say indicators like job growth, spending, and inflation will be crucial measures of how the country is recovering in the following months. For more on this, let's bring in Megan Cassella. She's an economic policy reporter for Politico and tracking this story. So, Megan, what role does the fear of the pandemic, particularly the Delta variant, right now, what kind of toll is it taking on the economic recovery of the United States?
We're starting to see it weigh a little bit already. And that's what the economists and lawmakers who I talk to are so worried about, that while most people agree that widespread lockdowns are unlikely at this point, the fear of the virus alone is enough to change some people's behavior. So it might make fewer people go out to restaurants or go to museums. It might have fewer people applying to jobs because they don't want to risk putting themselves or their family's health at risk. And so at this point, it's still early, a little bit too early to see it play out in a lot of the data. The jobs report that's coming out tomorrow, for example, was mostly surveyed before Delta was a major fear. But we're starting to see it in some real-time indicators and mostly in anecdotal surveys and stories from people just saying, I think, I'm going to start doing something differently. I might cancel that trip, or I might not book a different one because of Delta and because I don't know where this is going.
Yeah, and you write that a Delta variant-driven job slowdown is likely to be more pronounced in blue states, partially because the first time around, blue states were more likely to shut it all down in order to defend against the virus. The blue states took the virus very, very seriously, but that means they have a longer road to ramp back up again, and so reversing course is going to be tough. But can you talk about what kind of ripple effect that a slowdown would have for the greater U.S. economy if the blue states are hit particularly hard?
For sure. Well, the blue states, of course, will lead the recovery. They're a huge part of the U.S. economy. Think about New York and California. A huge part of the workers who remain unemployed are in those states, and others, across New England, across the West Coast, et cetera. And so that's where we're going to see a lot of this play out. And it's an interesting sort of, dynamic, because what many public health experts are telling us is that it's the unvaccinated who have to worry the most, and they're more often in red states. These blue states have higher vaccination rates, but they also have people who are just more likely to change their behavior, more likely to be worried about the variant and where it's going, and about following new restrictions or not going out to eat, for example. And so that hindering the recovery in blue states alone could be enough to hinder the overall recovery, just given how much economic activity goes on in those states.
So as you know, wages have been rising, particularly for low-income workers in the leisure and hospitality industry. What kind of impact is that having on inflation?
It's an interesting dynamic there, too, just because wages are rising, but in some cases it looks like inflation is rising more. Now, economists caution that doesn't mean that workers are taking a pay cut, because inflation, as we know, is being driven by really high used car prices, for example, really high prices in travel. And if you're not traveling, or if you're not buying a car right now, you might not be affected, and then you are still getting that raise. The concern is that if wages continue to rise faster, then that by itself could spark higher inflation. But I also hear a lot of caution there, too, that, policymakers, the Federal Reserve, for example, has been really out front on this, saying they do expect inflation to temper out. They don't think that rising wages are going to spark even higher inflation, and they do expect things to settle down before the rest of the year. The interesting question is whether inflation slows down enough that wage growth can outpace inflation growth. And so far, most economists I talk to do expect that to happen.
I thought the other thing that was really kind of interesting about your reporting was how seriously the Biden administration was taking the threat of this new COVID variant. They seem to be focused on infrastructure and other things, and it didn't really seem to sort of factor in this new variant and the impact it could have on the economy.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question and something we're still asking about because, of course, things are changing sort of day by day. But someone I spoke to in the administration recently, described it as concerned but not freaking out. And that's what they say both publicly and privately, that they have eyes on it, but they still think the recovery is really fast. They think even a worst case scenario would hopefully only dampen growth just slightly, and then it's still a fast recovery, if not a very fast one. But the longer this goes on, I think that of course becomes more of a question, and of course as cases continue to rise as well. We're already seeing less than half of Americans think that the economy is in good shape. Inflation fears are really weighing on that. If there's new restrictions, if there's more mask mandates, if back to school gets thrown into question and people can't go back to work, I think all of that will weigh on those numbers. And the labor market recovery has really been the centerpiece of Biden's economic agenda. And the administration, even when they're not acknowledging it publicly, they really know that it damages an administration if Americans don't think that the economy is doing well. And so it's one of the reasons they're really pushing so many vaccines, because they and economists know this is a public health problem first. The economy can't recover until we sort of get cases under control. So they're very, very focused on it. And I think, the worse things get, they know that the harder that will be to sell a strong economic recovery.
So on Tuesday, we saw the Biden administration extend the nation's eviction moratorium amid some pressure from Democrats. Now we're nearing the end of many social safety net programs like jobless benefits and the student loan pause. What's the scale of Americans that will be impacted by this? And is there a chance Congress or the Biden administration could extend these benefits as well?
It's no small number. I saw a new estimate this morning that 7.5 million Americans will be thrown off unemployment benefits by September 6th. That's in addition to those in 26 states, less than 2 million, but some 1.6 million or so that have already been thrown off of those unemployment benefits. And then the student loan numbers are actually even higher. It's tens of millions of Americans who will have to restart paying student loan payments by October. Of course, we can't rule it out. As of a week or two ago, we were still saying that the Biden administration had held firm and they weren't going to extend the eviction moratorium. Obviously, we saw that change this week. So I do think that it's a possibility. I would say probably more likely on the student loan front, we'll see some action get done. I think because it's so many more people, that's something that we could see happen, but it's still an open question right now. And the White House said even yesterday, the press secretary was talking about how they have no new updates to preview. On the unemployment front, it's something I've been tracking really closely. It seems like there's no movement as of now to extend those payments. And I think one of the biggest hurdles there that advocates are facing as they're pushing the administration and Congress to do something on that front is that the unemployment benefits have become such a flashpoint in this debate over the labor market recovery. There's been so much pushback by employers and others who say people are getting paid too much to stay at home. And especially since we're not quite seeing the economic impacts of the Delta variant hitting just yet, I don't see enough of a push there for those to get extended right away. It could be that they lapse and then they're renewed later. I could be wrong, but that's sort of where things stand at this point, and it's tens of millions of Americans who are sort of hanging in the balance here and facing some real economic upheaval in the next few weeks if nothing's done.
So true, living in limbo. Megan Cassella, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.